Hello.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Welcome to Mark and Mac. The next episode in our thrilling chat show.
Yes, indeed. So, thrilling episode.
Yeah. So before we start, I just wanted to make it pretty clear that it's not like this all the time. It hasn't been like this for quite a few days.
What, 25 degrees and unbroken sunshine?
And t-shirts and shorts and all sorts of stuff. So it's not like this all the time. We're going to start off by having a little chat with you about our, I suppose that we call it the first leg, Brindisi to Crotone. Crotone, yeah. Because the last time we had a chat, it was, we had just left Brindisi, dodging a ferry.
Correct.
And en route.
Blimey, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago. So, I mean, basically we had a lovely sail down the coast. We had a double rainbow.
We did indeed.
And we were two happy bunnies, I think is the best way.
It was a great day, wasn't it? We had a super day.
Lovely sail.
During the day, it was wonderful.
Yep.
In fact, because I think it might be worth pointing out, when we left Brindisi, the idea was we wanted to get along the southern coast of the boot of Italy. And that's a sort of a notorious area because during the winter you get gales from the southeast and gales from the north. So you've got to be, pick your moment kind of thing, because there's one or two sort of hot spots along there. And in fact, in the pilot book, it's recommended not to sail the southern coast of Italy during the winter because of these lows that pop up very quickly and storms and that sort of stuff. So we were, biding our time, trying to pick the right moment. Anyway, we left in nice weather, didn't we?
That was gorgeous.
And the first target was actually to get across the Bay of Taranto, which I think we probably mentioned in the previous blog.
Yeah.
And that all was going swimmingly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, darkness was setting, and dusk came and went, and we'd sort of agreed 10 o'clock we'll start doing a few watches and get some sleep to get us across the bay, because it's about, is it 90 miles?
It's about 90 miles across the bay. There was a little bit of, we had a discussion between us about whether we should stop at Lilca, which is the southernmost tip of the heel, and wait for daylight, or carry on across, because during the afternoon, as we were sort of trundling down the coast, a low flashed up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Basically where we were going. It came up sort of, sort of late afternoon, which flagged for me the fact that, one of these lows that tends to appear very quickly had suddenly started to form during the afternoon. So we were trying to decide whether we should stop at Lilca and see what happened with the low, or go sailing off towards the low and try and get into Crotone
Before it really kicked in.
Before it kicked in. So there was, it's not an easy decision to make to sail off into the night down towards a low that is forming. Yeah,
because there wasn't a lot of moonlight either.
No, it was dark night.
And it was quite overcast. We had a few patches of rain from time to time. But, it
was a lovely day, but it was a bit of a miserable night, wasn't it?
Miserable night.
It was the wind was picking up and the rain was coming down.
Yeah.
Remember at one point we said, let's take the Bimini down, shall we? And you said, no, let's leave it up. And I'm glad we did, because it got very wet, didn't it?
It got horrendously wet.
Yeah.
But as I say, about 10 o'clock, we'd sort of agreed that we would, I suppose it's worth mentioning, just before darkness, we had a little bit of a blip in the engine, didn't we?
It was sort of blurred, didn't it?
Yeah, it kind of was, sitting at, 1,800, 2,000
We're
revs?
about 2,000 revs, because the wind was very, very light, so we were trying to use the engine and the sail we had up to make up, or keep our pace, really.
And she kind of coughed.
She went from 2,000 down to 1,800, down to 1,500, down to 1,200, down to 1,000, and she wouldn't go above 1,000 revs for about, 10 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
It wasn't long, and I fiddled around with the Morse. The Morse is the accelerator lever, and it sort of went and then back up to 2,000 again, and there it stayed.
Yeah.
So we chugged on. We thought maybe a bit of dirt in the fuel, or it was. We came to the conclusion, or we thought that it was definitely a fuel issue.
Yeah.
And we sort of looked at each other and went, bloody Italian fuel. What are they doing with
dirty fuel?
Dirty fuel, dirty. But the engine was fine, and we carried on. And then the wind came.
Yeah.
And we were going along quite nicely.
We were flying along,
we were zooming along.
Yeah.
And then the wind dropped, completely. So we put the engine back on again. Oh no, yeah, I think
Yeah,
we put the
that's
engine,
right.
put the engine back on again, and within an hour we'd got another blur.
Yeah,
hadn't we?
So yeah, but it was bang on time when we'd sort of agreed, let's get some rest.
Yeah.
You know, who goes first?
Yeah.
I think it was about bang on 2200, and this thing died on us.
Then the engine just went down to 1,000 revs and didn't want to know about going any higher.
Yeah.
So we turned the engine off,
Yeah.
and we wallowed a bit for not long actually. We were lucky in that respect. Then the wind came back quite strong, and we started sailing along at 8 knots.
Yeah.
We were flying along. At which point I said to Rob, we're going a bit fast, mate. He said, well, what do you mean we're going too fast? We can't go.
I'd never heard that before.
Well, we are going too fast because if we
Can't be going too fast.
we're going at this speed for the rest of the evening, we're going to be in Crotone at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we know it's shallow. It says in the pilot book,
Badly lit.
Yeah. You know, we don't want to be trying to go in there.
Oh, and there was a few gas platforms kicking about.
Oh, that's right. There's some gas platforms as well. I said, you know, we don't want to be going in there at 4 a.m., so we're going to have to slow down. At which point, Robin, I'll let you take over because this made your day, didn't it?
Yeah, it was quite funny because Mark put a couple of reefs in the Genoa, the sail at the front, and a couple of reefs in the main. And we slowed down incredibly, didn't we?
Yeah.
From 8 to 7, 8 to 7 knots.
So you wouldn't slow down.
And I said, what do we need to get down to here? And he said 4.5.
Yeah.
Because we'd stepped out the distance and worked out what time we would hit there for daylight. So then there was another reef chucked in, and that brought us down to about 6.
Yeah. No, that's right.
And by the way, there was only 22 knots of wind. You know, it wasn't
on the beam.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't exactly.
It's an efficient point of sail.
Blowing a hoolie.
Yeah.
And then we got it down to, you can see in the blog the photograph we got it down to. I mean, it literally was like a blanket up front and a mirror dinghy sail on the main sail. It was that small.
Which that got us down to our
4.5
quiet
knots.
speed, wasn't it? That's about sort of 4-ish, 4.5 knots.
Yeah.
So we're quite happy at that point because we're bowling along, and the sort of the memory of the faulty engine faded because we were sailing at a nice speed, under control. The waves were quite big. It was quite a bit uncomfortable because they're a bit on the beam, weren't they?
A bit in the beam.
The waves were,
and we couldn't really see them. So you couldn't really prepare yourself for when they wallowed you. Yeah. And so it was, and it chucked it down for one stage.
Yeah, there we
absolutely feckin' hammered it down. But we were safe, and as I think you said to me, we're in a sailboat.
Well, it is, yeah. So
we've got sails.
We luckily, even if we haven't got an engine, we've got some sails. So let's get from A to B. And of course, what that does, that allows you to relax a little bit because it buys you some time. Yeah. And we went across the Bay of Taranto, the Gulf of Taranto, lickety split, got to the other side. And as the light came in, we could see Crotone.
Yeah.
Relatively close, and as the sky started to clear, and it was quite good actually because we saw the sun coming up. It was very nice.
Morning, yeah.
At which point we got the gale warning.
Yeah.
And there was a gale warning coming through.
Imminent
gale warning, and it sounded like it wasn't for our area, but I think it
turned out.
It turned out it sounded. I think they may have missed us out or whatever. Anyway. We got the gale warning, so I had a few things on my mind at the time. I thought, well, we've got to try and get into this port. I'm hoping the engine's going to work because we can, with this wind, we'll be able to sail right up to the entrance. Yeah, because get the sails down sharpish and hopefully use a little bit of engine.
Because we hadn't had the engine on for about 5, 6 hours. But
I hadn't had it on for a long time.
Yeah.
So I said to Rob, listen, let's test the engine before we commit. We tested the engine. The engine fired up. Sounded fine. I gave it a little bit of revs. Everything sounded okay, even if we didn't have full speed revs. It was all right. And as luck would have it, as we got closer to the entrance, the wind sort of dropped and dropped. We opened the whole of the generator, and we literally sailed right up to the entrance. Yeah. Put the generator away. Engine was warm by that. I'd been running for about 10 minutes by that time. So we went round the corner. Then the next, of course, your heart's in your mouth slightly. So you think, is this engine going to be ready? We had the anchor prep just in case. And as we went round, Rob's trying to Rob's navigating us in with the instruments to go in the deepest patch. At which point, it went to 0. I'm going to swear then. Sorry. Yeah. The depth gauge then went to 0 for momentarily. I don't know, for about 10 10, 20,
long enough.
20 seconds anyway.
Felt like,
and then suddenly it started creeping back up again as we obviously went over a bit of a sandbar, which says in the pilot book. But it says you've got 3 meters in the pilot book. We haven't. We've got less than that. Yeah. Anyway, in we went, and I thought, well, this is okay. And I said, well, should we go to the fuel dock? No. Where should we go? I don't know. And I saw a guy at the other end of the marina, and I kind of waved to him, and he waved to me. And I thought, right, he's the man. So we chugged up to him, and I said, he sort of looked at me, and I said, I indicated that I wanted to stop, and he sort of pointed, stop here, which was exactly where I wanted to be, because it was asked to the wind behind the north wind that was coming.
Big wall.
Nice big wall, and we reversed back up onto the stern to onto the dock, got the lines ashore, got the bow lines on, stepped ashore, and by the time as we stepped ashore, I noticed as we'd come down the coast, the windmills had sort of been getting faster and faster. I thought, that wind's coming. And I sort of said to him, hi, and he's like, yeah, I'm Giulio, you timed that well. Within an hour, this is going to be blowing 20 knots here. We're like, oh, really? Yeah. Anyway, he whizzed off, brought us back coffee and chocolate croissants.
Yeah, that was nearly the first. After we tied up, we just went,
what do you want?
Coffee.
How'd you take your coffee?
Croissants. And we went, what? Really? And neither of us slept all night.
No, we hadn't slept for 30 hours.
Yeah. And right enough, because it had been from the day before when we left Brindisi.
Wasn't it?
So 30 odd hours,
Anyway, so the coffee arrived.
It was most welcome.
And as the coffee arrived, the wind arrived. Yeah, and I looked at Robin and I went,
that was good timing.
That's a bit close for comfort, that one, mate. Faulty engine, no water, shallow entrance. Couldn't raise anybody in the VHF to find us a spot. Luckily, he was. I would have tied up on the field dock. Had my friend Giulio not arrived. And so there we were. And that was the moment then I sort of switched off and relaxed and said to Robin, you don't know how happy I am to be here. And Robin looked at me and said, well, I don't know how happy you are. You seem fairly
I can see it in your face.
Anyway.
Two zombies we were.
I'll hand over to Robin now. I've held all that bit. You can just set the next adventure, Robin.
Well, the next little bit was obviously the engine. We had to get that looked at. And, from our previous experience in Brindisi, when we had an engine issue, the engineer came on board on Friday night and said, more or less, I'll see you on... It was a public holiday then, but he came. And there was absolutely nothing going on the whole weekend. So I had visions of, sitting here for 2 days with nothing happened before anybody looked at it. But Mark dug out the Italian, spoke to, what was the last, Giulio?
Giulio.
Spoke to Giulio, and Giulio said, we have an engineer. And he got him down. He said, he'll be down this morning. So we hit the hay. And the next thing, I remember getting awakened by a banging in the door. And that was, what was the lad's name?
Gino,
the engineer, small little Italian man, didn't speak any English. I'm afraid I had to go and give Mark a rattle to get him up to translate. But anyway, Gino said he'd be back after lunch, and I went, geez, I wish he'd just left us sleeping, because we were wrecked. And he came back after lunch and proceeded to...
Well, I came back at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5 o'clock, and proceeded to... he just worked the problem, to be fair. We told him what the issue was, and he told us it was definitely fuel in his mind. But
there was a horror story. There was a horror story in there, wasn't there?
Yes.
He tells us it was fuel, and the reason he said it was fuel because there was a boat, 2 boats down from us, who'd been in for a couple of days, and he'd had his tanks filled up with water.
That's Zatara, and 80% water is what they said.
We've just filled up.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. They haven't put water in that. There's not water contamination, have we? Anyway, so Gino went through the whole fuel thing from start to finish. Didn't find any water, but
he found some pretty bad gunk in the Racor.
The Racor, Racor's a fuel polisher.
Yeah, diesel filter, and it was just full of shit. We changed the filter out. Changed the filter in the
primary filter
in the tank. And then the
secondary filter, or the tertiary filter in the engine, actually. Because most of these boats you only have 2. You have one in the tank and one just before in the engine. But we've got a fuel polisher as well, a Racor system, which helps to make the fuel even cleaner. Anyway,
so we had 3 gunked up.
Problem with starvation, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So he did it, and to be fair to him, he said he'd be back at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning to finish it off, because he wasn't a happy bunny, was he?
Well, he wasn't running right when he left it. After the first session, then he left on Saturday night. He was in a bad mood, and he was ringing people and swearing down the phone. And he said, the engine's not right. I'll be back in the morning, even though it's Sunday going to come back.
at 9
he did?
o'clock. Yeah, he said he'd be back at 9, and he came bang on at 11 o'clock.
That's right, straight after mass.
Yeah, straight after mass. And to be fair, he worked away, and as far as we concerned, I mean, it sounded good when he'd finished. And
Well, he was confident.
Yeah.
I was confident. He explained to me the problem, and I'd been working with him, passing him his tools pretty much throughout the whole episode. So I was there when we uncovered all the nastiness in the bottom of the ray core, and I also saw that there was a lot of stuff around the primary filter that he pulled out of the tank, and we looked at the fuel when he tested the fuel, and the fuel looked to be in good condition. So, he was happy that he'd solved the problem. We started the engine up, and he revved the names off it, which upset me slightly.
That's the bollocks.
But
3,000
it made him. It was cold. Yeah, it made him smile.
Yep.
And touch wood.
Yep.
Since then,
No issues.
and it's had a good test since then, hasn't
It
it?
surely has.
We've had no issues with that. So anyway, over to you.
Yeah, so that was Crotone.
That was Crotone.
That was Crotone, and the plan was that we would get a good night's sleep, really catch up on our sleep, and the next day we were going to go into town and do a bit of shopping and buy some chicken and buy some stuff from the chandlery, and we more or less had the day knocked out. But we'll leave it at that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. And,
Okay.
We'll talk to you again.
Next blog?
Next blog, yeah.
All right. Cheerio.
Arrivederci.